All right, hey, let's get you liberated from the chaos of working in your business. Scott Beebe, the head coach, the founder of the Business on Purpose podcast, and I want to do a unique episode on this where it is a bounce back from the last episode with Hani Morra. So I did an interview. Don't do those that often anymore. I used to do those. If you go back to episode 1 through, my goodness, probably 70 or 80 something in the Business on Purpose podcast, you will see a lot of interviews. And then we started doing a lot of coaching episodes because we got great feedback that that's what's needed right now. And in coaching, I decided to do an interview or a conversation, better yet, with Hani Morra because of some of the incredible automation tools that he's put in place that are simple, very inexpensive for you to be able to use as a small business owner to replicate the content that you're building to maximize the time that you're investing. And it was a great conversation. So I want to make sure you go back and have a listen to that conversation. Hani is such a humble guy. I had to do a follow-up podcast because there's something very important he did not tell you in the podcast. He told me after we were done, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this has got to, we've got to share this. So before we flipped the record button on, he told me, if you'll recall, the reason that I even asked him to be on the podcast because he sent me an email, and it looked like a personal email from Hani Morra, the founder of the company, directly to me, just a customer, basically saying, hey, we screwed up. We found a glitch, and what it did is it double sent or double loaded your videos from Facebook Live to YouTube. My goodness, we're so sorry. What can we do to fix this? Here's how you fix it, etc. And I wrote him back, and I was like, man, it's not a big deal at all. I mean, it really wasn't. I wouldn't have even known, quite honestly. It wasn't a big deal. And that's where I said, hey, by the way, since I've got your ear, I'd love to chat with you about what you built because it's so potent and so powerful. Well, so that's how I met Hani, was through a customer service email. What I did not realize was that Hani reached out to every single customer individually. Every single customer individually. Now, does that put some context onto the podcast that he was talking about in the last podcast? Again, if you've not listened to it, go listen to it. And when he says that automation, kind of the bubble of automation is the necessity to go back to human interaction and human contact to make sure that we've got human relationship. And then we get off the phone and he tells me that he's individually reached out, and I had to actually pull it out of him, had to kind of drag it out of him. He individually reached out to every customer for a problem that was not that massive, quite honestly. Now to him, he said it was the worst day since he started the business. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's unbelievable. And so when we talk about doing business on purpose, one of the core values of doing business on purpose is not only humility, but is also vulnerability. Humility and vulnerability. Jesus talks about these things over and over and over again in the Sermon on the Mount, in the Gospel, particularly in Matthew. And just this, not being walked over, certainly not being walked over, and yet at the same time having great humility to serve. Great humility to serve. And I felt like I needed to do a follow-up podcast to tell you what Hani would not tell you, and I think in large part because he just had the humility to serve, to say, hey, you as a customer signed up for X, I'm going to make sure that you receive X and beyond. So powerful. I've got so much to learn from that, and I know you do as well. And that's why I wanted to share it with you. So make sure you go listen back to the Hani Morra episode. I think it will be insightful for you. And now knowing that context, I think you'll see even more deeply into the world of Hani Morra, and more importantly, into the world of a business owner who wants to serve and what that serving looks like. So again, Hani, if you listen to this, thank you. For you, the heroic small business owner who is listening to this, thank you. What you're building is important, and we want to be able to provide you the insight and the courage to be able to build it right here on the Business on Purpose podcast. I'll see you right next time, right here. Check out mybusinessonpurpose.com. See you on the podcast.